Welcome, everyone, to this special edition episode of the See You in Van Mail podcast. I'm your host, Sam Gobert, Carroll's Sports Information Director. Today is a very important day in sports. Today, February 3rd, is the 35th annual National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. National Girls and Women's in Sports Day honors the achievements of female athletes, coaches, and leaders, and continues to lead her forward by acknowledging the power of sports to unlock her limitless potential. To celebrate, we'll be discussing girls and women in sports with some of our women athletes and coaches from Carroll University. Joining us today is head volleyball coach Becca Saal, assistant track and field coach Taylor Wilch, senior swimming and diving student athlete Lindsey Coons, and senior women's golf athlete Abby VanDeHei. Ladies, thank you all for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So to jump right in, this question is started for everybody. Why don't you chime in and tell us how you got into sports as a kid and growing up?
I'll go ahead and start. I'm Becca Saal, I'm the volleyball coach. I guess I decided to get into sports because of my mom and my brothers. I listened to a lot of stories from my mom growing up, how she played sports in college. She ran track, played volleyball, basketball, and softball. And a lot of stories about cheerleading too, because she was a cheerleader in high school because they didn't have sports, they didn't offer it. And so she wanted to do something and be active, so she did cheerleading. I have four older brothers, and they were really active in sports as well. So I was always tagging along with them and trying to compete with them. And I looked up to them a lot. And so they were athletes, and I wanted to be an athlete too.
Very cool.
I can build off of that. I also have two older cousins and a brother, and they all participate in sports as well. So kind of seeing their success and their love for specifically swimming, they were all swimmers, but just sports in general. I wanted to be a part of it as well. So that's kind of how I got into swimming, and all of them moved on to collegiate swimming. So I wanted to do that as well. So that's kind of my story.
I am actually an oldest child, besides not having anyone older to that played sports, but both of my parents played sports throughout high school growing up, and then my mom was a two-sport athlete in college, so it was kind of just looking up to them and wanting to play. So I ended up playing softball for majority of growing up for 13 years, which is both what my mom played, and then she played that in college. And then my dad told me when I got to high school that I needed to play an individual sport. So it was either that or tennis. So I chose golf because I played softball in the spring. And then that's how I ended up, I fell in love with it, and then now playing it here.
Awesome. Yeah, so kind of similar, but when I was younger, I had a lot of energy, and I still do. So it kind of started with my parents just throwing me into anything they could get me into to keep me busy and try to burn some energy off, which probably just worked a little bit, not as much as they probably hoped. But I've always been super competitive. I think I still kind of now, and I really like competing. I'm still kind of just competitive in everything I do. But I enjoy, now getting the opportunity to continue to coach and give back to the sport that I enjoy so much. So I was also a three-sport athlete in high school, competed in track and field in college, and now love coaching at the college level too. So.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. Lindsey and Becca, you had mentioned, brothers or other males in your family that got you kind of into sports as well. When you were growing up with them, were your brothers always inviting for you to join along in sports, or no, you have to go do something else? Did you, and to anyone else, did you face any pushback from others of not, wanting you to participate in the sports that maybe the boys were playing or that other people were playing?
I can go first unless you want to go back up. But since all my neighbors were boys and I have all boy cousins, I have no girls in my family at all. I have all brothers. And so I'm extremely competitive. Like Taylor said, I might be one of the most competitive people you've ever met. But so with that, they always wanted to play football or basketball or sports that are more in nature male sports. And so I definitely got the boot sometimes when they wanted to play football. They said, "Oh, Lindsey, you're not good enough. Like, you got to get out of here. You're not tall enough, whatever." But because of my competitiveness, I think I pushed my way into the game anyway. I would force them to make me play. So I wouldn't say like for organized sports I received a lot of pushback, but for definitely like those type of pickup games and stuff I did with my brothers and stuff.
I still played with my brothers, regardless. Sometimes it was just one-on-one football, or it might be two-on-one, two of them against me, and they were all older and bigger too. But most of the time, they let me play just so they could beat up on me. It was just an easy way for them to do that. I think some more of my challenges, I wasn't, on the playground or at school, when we played sports and stuff, I was usually the biggest. I was the tallest in elementary and even into middle school. So people wanted me on their team and wanted me to play. It was more challenging to try and fit in with the girl side. I didn't fit in. I was playing sports and I didn't want to, dress fancy or do makeup or do some of that other stuff. So that was a little bit more of a challenge than, brothers, you can't play, or, just finding a group that I could be involved in. That didn't happen till high school, where I met some other females and some other girls and kind of had my own little group that was also excited about playing sports.
Very nice. Cool. So I guess this kind of leads into another question too. Has anyone ever criticized women's sports to you directly, or has anyone ever had to face adversity through women's sports, and did anybody ever have to combat that?
I can go first for this one as well. I wouldn't say necessarily facing adversity when like joining a sport, but I would say for swimming in general, something that comes up a lot for women specifically versus the males is like body image. And with the swimsuits, like it can be like sexualized in a certain way, or you hear all the time like, "Oh, this body type shouldn't wear an open back suit," or "This body type shouldn't wear this kind of suit," or whatever it is. So I think not necessarily from like coaches or organizations, but from like other teammates or males who come to watch, or whoever else, like even females to females, So I think that's something like definitely challenging that faces a lot of swimmers, women specifically.
I can say, I haven't heard a lot of direct criticism, except for that's pretty good for a girl. Like they always add that at the end, and that makes me mad when they say that, and I'll call people out for that. But I think it's more of a lack of respect than a criticism. Sometimes we don't get the attention that male sports get, or people just don't think we work as hard, that we're not in the weight room or in the gym or on the field or in the pool, grinding every day and practicing and, eating right and doing all those things that the male sports are doing. And I think one situation that I can think of from college is we were given a workout for the weight room, and it wasn't tailored for a female volleyball team. It was tailored for a football team. And it was like, that's kind of shaped where I've come and what I've done and what I decided to study was strength and conditioning, because, we deserve the same respect as the male sports. We would deserve workouts that are made for our sport and for female athletes. So.
Yeah, for myself, I was kind of relating to what Lindsey had said, track and field especially. I like a lot of women's sports, but one that's based so heavily on like how you're performing, and, it's timed, it's shown, and like your, body image is closely related to that too. So I think a lot of times in track and field, it's like, oh, well, professional athletes look like this, or I'm supposed to look like this as a distance runner, as a sprinter. And so I think, for women, it can be a little bit of a body image issue or battle with that, but which is why I enjoy coaching too, and just helping encourage that and try to break that a little bit. But Otherwise, I don't think so. I've never really had too much criticism. Kind of what Rebecca had said, just maybe the lack of respect in certain aspects. At the high school level, I was a 3-sport athlete, so we were better, as a women's basketball program, but the men's basketball team got more people to go there to their games and just more support. So I kind of see that changing. I work at a high school also too, so I think we do a better job just kind of encouraging and pushing women's sports. So yeah, I think that's changing, which is good, but just that area a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of going off of what they've said, like the lack of like attention and stuff, that definitely like being on the women's golf team, like, or I guess golf in general, like when most people are like trying to like question like what sport you play, they're gonna say softball, baseball, basketball, like football. Most of the time golf is not like one that they like think of. So, and I guess like especially like in high school, it wasn't, I kind of noticed that like golf was definitely on like the low burner. Like we didn't have as many like people on the team, or like compared to like the men's team, our boys team had a lot more than the girls. And like golf's also a hard sport because it's hard to like come and watch, like to try to get fans there. It's not really one that people think, oh, like I can go watch golf, which you can, because a lot of like our parents are at like every meet. But I think I can definitely relate to like the lack of like attention.
Well, thank you all for sharing. I appreciate that. Abby, this kind of leads into a question that I had for you. And, golf by history standards has always been a male-dominated sport. And a lot of people, especially in the old days, used to frown on people who weren't wealthy white males golfing. I guess, have you ever, as we get into the year 2021, some of that is starting to change. We're starting to see more diversity on a golf course. Have you ever felt on a golf course out of place because a course has made you feel out of place? Or I guess to positively spin that, or what are some ways that you see that golf courses are becoming more diverse and more accepting of different player types?
I don't think I've ever really felt like out of place. I think mainly when I feel like we go there, or like when I go to practice, it is mainly men at the course. So I feel like you've just kind of learned to like, who's more going to be around. Like, and when I see like another like high school athlete or another like golfer that's a girl, I think it's really exciting, because I think it takes to come out and practice by yourself in a like to the range that mainly is going to be guys around you. I think it takes a lot of courage and confidence to like still want to be able to like practice like your skills, but you have not always going to have like another girl to go with you. I recently over a break went to Arizona and went down and golfed the whole time I was there, and there was very few times where there was like other women at the course. So that was interesting, because when I'm up here I see more women, girls out at the course, but it was mainly, there was times where I was like the only girl probably in the whole facility when I was down there. So that was interesting.
Nice. It's nice to hear that the diversity is growing up here, and it's becoming more common up here just to see just women practicing instead of these older white men on the course all day and taking up all the tee times. So it's very interesting. I'm very happy that you shared that. As a golfer myself, I really encourage and really stand for more people to try the sport and to stop with the preconceived notion that it's just for white fathers, white grandpas. So that's very important to me as well. So thank you for sharing. Lindsey, the swimming and diving community is a large one, especially starting at the high school level. I mean, have you ever had any positive experiences with women's swimming and diving programs where you all kind of come together in a sport where it's competitive, where you swim against each other, but you're not necessarily, battling against each other like you would on a court or a football field?
Yeah, both my high school and my collegiate experience has been such a positive one. I think you hear a lot about like women supporting women, and especially at the high school level, that's really evident. You know, like at meets, at I know at least on my team, it was required that everyone stands up and cheers for one another all the time, and it truly felt genuine. You know, it didn't just feel forced; it felt like authentic, and so that was really cool at the high school level. But I wanted to add that at the collegiate level, something that I think is really cool is not only are women supporting women, but the men's team is supporting the women as well. You know, I feel completely supported by every member of the men's team and the women's team in everything I do. And honestly, the men's team are some of like my best friends, and they'll always be there to push me to be better and to be more successful, to put my best foot forward, everything like that. And I think that's super cool to see, and unmatched by club swimming, by high school swimming, anything like that. I think at the collegiate level, it just brings that cohesiveness between the men's and women's team together. So that's a really positive experience I've had.
I can kind of go off of that. I think like on the golf course, we spend 4 to 6 hours with the other teammates or players from other teams that you're golfing with. So you've really learned to like connect, and you make some really good friendships, and they'll come up to you if you're not playing with them after a match and ask how you did. And they really truly do want to like see you like play well and support you. And they'll be like clapping for you on the course if you're making like a good shot or if you birdied a hole. Like not only do you have like your team behind us, but we become really good friends with other competitors, and they're there to like support you and cheer you on just as well.
Yeah, thank you for adding that into Abby. And yeah, thank you, Lindsey. And I wanted to add that I think with some of the sports like golf here at Carroll and swim and dive, and even Taylor, if you'd like, you can build off this with the track program. I think the men's and women's sports that travel together and compete together at the same events and tournament really have a strong bond, and both teams support each other. The women support the men and the men support the women. I'm really that's one of the things I'm proud of about Carroll is how well our men's and women's programs are connected.
Yeah, I think definitely in our track and field program, Coach T always kind of prides us on becoming a family and being a family. And I think that not only in our track program, but I've noticed it more. This is only my second year at Carroll, but throughout the whole athletics program, I've only been at a few other places, but I think Carroll does an amazing job at just everyone supports everyone and wants them to succeed. But especially with our men's and women's programs, like you have a giant family of like 100 people right away. We have a really big team. So it's really great to see the men and women come together, work together. They're able to train together and push each other. It's really cool with track and field because everyone runs the same event. 400 meters is the same length for men as it is women. And so they have similar workouts. Some might just vary based on how they're feeling on the day, but everyone's there and they kind of have their spot in the competitive area. So it's not often that we practice separately for genders, but sometimes it's nice to separate them just so they can connect as a group, the women's side and the men's side, but most of the time we are together. So it is really awesome. And I think just even the support off the competitive field as well, or track, because then we have so much support academically for the student athletes as well. I don't know if you both feel that way, but I think that's just in my experience as well, people that can help you, what was this class like, or I'm struggling with this, and just being able to support you on that level too. So it's really awesome and just a big family.
Awesome. I really love to hear that. That's great. And Taylor, I wanted to also follow up with another question for you. And what ways does being a women coach, as you train both female and males for track and field, what ways has being a woman helped you in your coaching techniques or your coaching style?
I don't think that my gender really has any effect on how I coach or who I am as a coach. I think I really enjoy coaching both genders just because I get to see so many people of different backgrounds and just of abilities and mentalities. So I just get to meet a bunch of different people and have kind of a large pool to train with. So I really enjoy that. But I think people are usually really surprised when they do hear that I coach men and women. Actually, my other coworker today, she just said, I was talking about being on this podcast, and she goes, "Oh, you coach men and women? I thought you just coached women." And I guess I never specified with her, but she just assumed it was just women. So usually they're surprised, but I think for our athletes here, Coach T has done a really good job. And I don't think he intentionally hires women coaches, but we are 50-50 with the coaching staff. We have 4 female coaches on staff for the track program, which is not the norm in track and field. It's very male dominated, especially in my position for men's and women's sprints. That's primarily going to be, or the norm is to see a male in that position. But I think our kids are just so used to it. We have 4 amazing female coaches on staff, and I don't think that Coach G goes out of his way to hire women. It's that we're, the best coaches for the job, and so I think that's really awesome, and the kids are receptive to that. So I really like that. But I think just being able to create relationships, that's really big for me. I realized growing up how much sports played into that, like, part of my life and just building who I am today. So I just enjoy creating those relationships with the athletes. That helps me with their training too, just like how they're doing outside of school, who they are as a person, and just getting to know like how much I can really push them, or what kind of push they might need. So I think that has more to do with it than my gender. But yeah, I think that's kind of it on that. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much. I really, I like what you said. Coach T doesn't just hire women to hire women; he hires them for the right job, and you all do a great job. All the coaches at the track and field program. I know your sprint group just had a really nice weekend at your first meet, so congratulations on that too.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to echo that he's hiring the right people for the job.
Yeah.
Becca, I had a question then for you. So for your program this year, you had quite a new group with a large group of freshmen and young sophomores still on the team. What are some of your favorite things about being the coach of a women's team and getting to have a large group of female athletes each year?
I think, going back to some of the comments that you all had about having supportive teammates, that's kind of the coolest part, is to see them supporting their teammates on the court and off the court. They're all students as well, and so they're taking classes and might need notes or info about certain professors or just help with a certain situation. I think that's one of the coolest parts, and I really love this time in their lives where they're transitioning from basically kids and teenagers to adults, and so it's a difficult time, and I enjoyed my experience as a student athlete, and ultimately became a coach and a college coach because I just love the transition and I love helping with that transition. I love that, I think that our athletes have to work really hard to get along because we're volleyball. There's not a whole lot of sports that are like us where you don't know who the ball is going to. Anybody could touch the ball. It's not an individual sport where you're just relying on yourself to compete at that time. It really has to be true teamwork. And so having a supportive team that really cares about each other is not only nice just because we all get along, but it's also really important on the court as well. And so to see them come together and do that day in and day out is really special. And as a coach, that's kind of my job, is when we're not coming together and we're not, fulfilling our offense or defense or doing what we're supposed to do, that's when I get to step in and like, okay, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to, get together so that we can pass that hit and do what we need to on the court.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's that level of trust too that you kind of mentioned that we all have to have with one another, and I think that goes along great with, with a new group too. I'm sure it's hard as you get freshmen in, but being able to build that team chemistry, I'm sure, is very important, and it's shown a lot as well. So, finally, I just wanted to put this out there for everybody. This will be our last question for the day. you know, when this podcast airs on National Girls and Women's in Sports Day, if there's any little girls in school, or if there's people like girls in high school sports right now listening to this, is there anything, or someone who's curious about, you know, maybe should I get into sports? It feels like only boys are playing sports. You know, what's one thing that you would say to little girls, or even high school girls listening to this right now who are curious about getting into sports or getting into coaching?
I can go. I think sports in general, I think for everybody, but myself specifically, I felt that I grew so much as a person, especially through my college years, but just the leadership skills I developed, the confidence, which was a huge thing for me that I developed through sport. So, you know, and sports can be hard, you know, if you're either a three-sport athlete, maybe you're good at one of them in high school and not, you know, so great in the others, you might want to quit, but every sport team and every sport kind of, you have a role for that. Every teammate has a role for it. So even if you're not a standout athlete or you're going to go D1 for college, you know, just keep playing, keep pushing, because what you're getting out of it is more than just playing time or just, you know, what your stats are or what you can put on a recruiting form. And, you know, it's more about like the person you're becoming and what you're going to gain from these experiences as well. But also, you know, anyone struggling or thinking about coaching, or, you know, if there are any barriers to what you're trying to accomplish, just keep pushing and don't let people tell you you can't do something. Just let it motivate you a little more, because that's what I do. You got to prove them wrong.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on that or have anything they'd like to say?
I would agree 100% with what Taylor said. I think like as much sports have been a huge part of my life, and not only do I love like the sports that I've played, but they've made me who I am, to like given me the leadership skills to help be a captain on a team. And it I would tell someone to like try something new, because you never know like what you'll like. I thought golf was a very stupid sport prior to playing it and super boring, but it turned out to be one of my favorite things and an outlet that I can go do if I'm stressed or if I'm angry. So I would just give it a try. You never know what will come out of it.
I think a lot of the benefits that athletes get is the relationships that they build when they're in sports, whether it's with their teammates or their coaches or people they compete against, or even, you know, when you're graduated, you're talking to somebody who also played that sport, and it's just a conversation starter. There's so many good things that come out of sports that I think it's definitely worth it to try if you're passionate about it, if you like it, if you're good at it, to go and try and see if it's something that you can do for life. Plus, it keeps you in shape. And I'm all about, you know, exercise and feeling good and all that stuff. And I think when it comes down to it, like what we like most about it is the relationships that we build from it and that we can go back to even.
Yeah, going off of what Becca said, I completely agree with that. And like just the built-in family that you get from a team as well. You know, you have people to turn to for whatever you need. Anyone that you might need like advice from or questions in your life, like a team is always there for you. And I think that's something that I really enjoy about sports. So I guess like to anyone listening, just push to play. Like if that's what you're interested in, you should definitely go for it and just take a leap of faith. And yeah, that's what I would say.
I have one more comment, and I think it's, you know, whether you like the sport or whether you decide you don't like the sport, the people that you meet, you'll probably still be friends with. Like that's the cool thing is it continues to give back.
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. It's a lifelong thing as well. So, if anyone else has any other comments or things they'd like to add, I think we can wrap this episode up.
I have just one more thing, but I always do tell men and women, but especially women, because it's getting better, but we do need more women in coaching, that any way that you can give back after you're done competing or during competing, whether it's continuing and trying to be at a competitive level for coaching, or just, you know, one day when you have a family or if you have siblings coaching their teams, just try to give back to the sport and, you know, make sure that we have representation too. So I think that's so important, and just keep pushing for women in coaching and kind of make it the norm.
Yes, absolutely. That should be a positive trend moving forward, is making this more of a norm. And in the major leagues, it's in the professional sports, it's starting to become more of a norm, and I'm really happy to see that as well. So so thank you all again for joining and commenting and answering some of the questions I have today. For those listening, if you'd like to continue to support Pioneer Athletics, we are having our annual Toast to Pioneer Women this Friday, February 5th, virtually. The link to sign up and attend the event will be in the description of this podcast. So make sure, if you'd like to help support Pioneers Women Athletics, to join in for that celebration as well. Thank you all again, once again, for joining us today. I appreciate it.